Yeah, lots of boats, lots of jet skis. People on paddle boards.
I'm ready.
Thinking,
Okay, this afternoon's town board meeting will come to order. Jennifer, you do the roll call, please.
Sure. Kate Gladding. Here. Carl Walden.
Here.
Arlen Kai
Here.
and Steve Jernigan.
Here. Okay. The next item is discussing the procedure for appointing a supervisor to fill the vacancy. And in the packet, second page, I think. Very second page. I just want to go through. I know everybody's seen this before, but I just want to go through and make sure we all understand. The idea of spelling it out like this was to make it as transparent as possible. I think it's a fair process. Our filling the vacancy here is governed by statute and then also by an ordinance. The statute specifies it specifies a couple things, but the main part of it that we're concerned about is that because this is a town office and there's a vacancy on the board, if we didn't have anybody fill in for that fifth spot, then there's a potential tie votes. So what the statute 17.25 specifies is that the vacancies in town offices shall be filled in the town board by the remaining supervisors and the town clerk. And it goes on for more paragraphs, but that's the key part here. So the four of us will vote and Jennifer will also vote. The second document that comes into play is our own ordinance 91 that was approved back in February of 2021. It steps through the process almost to the end, but it doesn't get to the point of talking about what we actually do in this meeting to make it happen. So the rest of the procedure that is spelled out here in these couple pages tries to cover what happens in this meeting. The one part of the ordinance that probably won't come into play here is that if for some reason the board feels that the process was essentially flawed, more or less, then the board has got the option to restart the process and the procedure again by noticing the vacancy and going through from square one. Once we choose an applicant to fill the vacancy tonight, that person will be sworn in during the next regular board meeting and we'll begin serving immediately after that. So what we'll do, and here's the process then. So for the meeting overall, there was initially we went through whether it was going to be over 1 day or 2 days. Obviously, it's just one. What I will give in a second or two, or a minute or two probably, is a listing of who the applicants are. We had one withdrawal. Before the meeting, we drew from the name of the 4 applicants that are still active, and to determine the order of what the presentation would be. No give those. As far as the presentations go, like I said, we'll do it in the order that was drawn, the random drawings. Everyone's encouraged to stay in the meeting if you can. You don't have to leave when anyone else is presenting. The presentation you do can be just about anything, but I would focus on it. And I don't know if you've seen the documents, people in the audience, but focus on your qualifications, background, and experience that would support your applications. When it's your turn, you would state your name, and then you've got a maximum of 5 minutes to speak. I'll give some kind of alert when there's about 30 seconds left, but I think you'll find that 5 minutes is a pretty long time. There are no questions or comments from the board members, and there's no back and forth really between the presenters and the rest of the board and the audience. After the nominations are done, then all of the town officers have the option, and not required, but the option to nominate one of the applicants for continuation in the process, which really means to get to the voting stage. Those nominations must be seconded. Officers do not need to re-nominate someone if that happens to be your preferred applicant. You do not need to say it again. And then at the end of the nomination period, officers at the table here will have the option to make comments in support of their candidates. But negative comments about any of the applicants would not be allowed. The nomination period itself, I'll open up the nominations, and then we'll step through that process and then close the nominations. The voting itself, as I said, there is time before the voting where you can make words, words of support toward your candidate, not required. After that discussion has ended, then the voting will begin, and each town officer will state their choice of applicant. It'll be a roll call vote, so we'll go around the table. With 5 people voting, 3 is the majority, and that would, whoever gets 3 votes would take then the seat that's vacant now. If for some reason there's a 2-2 vote, then we'll continue with a second round of voting with just those 2 applicants. And with a 5-member board, there won't be a tie after that, unless there's someone who stays. If for some reason there is still a tie after the second vote, then we would resort to a coin flip. The winner of the voting tonight will take the seat that's vacant and continue throughout the term, and then be up for election again in next spring. So I think that's it as far as the process. Any questions about any of that? I'm going to do a vote on this just so that we have it recorded. So if anyone wants to move to approve the procedure for the meeting, that would be.
I move to approve the procedure for the meeting.
Any second, Tom?
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? No. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? And that passes. Okay. For the presentation order then. Let me back up. So the original applicants in order of alphabetical order by last name. And I'm not including Ann Clapper, who withdrew yesterday. So Lori Fitzgerald, Jason Marshall, Brian Richards, Laura Wilmot. The presentation order will be Lori, Brian, Jason, and then Laura. And Lori, if you'd like to begin, podium's here. There's no mic, so. State your name and then you've got, I think this too.
Oh, state my name, I'm Lori Fitzgerald. I just wrote a statement. I wanted to make sure I didn't ramble and babble, so I tried to keep things in order. So my background, I retired in 2015, and I wanted to get involved in doing some service for the town of Oregon, and I began by being a poll worker. And in doing that, I got to know some people I would never have met. And the people who worked down at the town hall at that time, Denise and Stephanie, I'm not Stephanie, but Jennifer, and then Abel and Ryan. So in 2016, the Torque job, there was an opening on the Torque because Ken West retired. And my husband, Sheldon Passion, who had been working there for quite a long time, kept telling me I should apply for the job. And I said, you're nuts. What are you talking about? You're kidding. But he kept bugging me. So finally he wore me down, and I went down to the town hall and I told Denise, I think it was, oh, I want to apply for this position, thinking they would never ask me to do this. For one thing, I don't know how to drive big tractors, and I have no intention of learning, and I never will. So anyhow, again, I walked away. They were delighted. It turns out when I got the job, I was the only person who applied. And I worked there until just recently. I was helping out after the end of 2022 when I tried to retire, but I kept coming down to help out and fill in. So my time in service to the court, I learned a lot about town government and how things work. The recent discussions about the future of the Torque and the pros and cons of curbside garbage service for residents have given me heightened respect for and gratitude to town residents who serve on the board or on the standing committees that work with the board. I was informed early in May that, guess what? Even though it was a month since the election, no one had expressed interest in filling the open seat. So just as happened with the Torque position, little deja vu, after some soul searching, I decided to apply. I have, as a retired educator at UW Oshkosh METC, I served on many committees, and I'm not afraid of working hard to prepare for committees, and I'm not afraid of long meetings. And just as an aside, once I was actually on a committee called the Committee on Committees, and it was as ridiculous as it sounds, but that just gives you a little idea of my background in committee work. To complete my application for the job, I was asked to answer 5 questions. And before I conclude my statement, I'd like to just reflect on one of the questions. It reads, how would you identify and respond to a conflict of interest? An example, having close connection with a person or organization that you would be making a decision that affects that person or organization. So in my case, I have an immediately obvious answer to that. My husband Sheldon still works at the Torque. And at the later in this meeting, as I understand, there's going to be a discussion of possibly giving him a promotion and maybe a raise. And obviously, I could not participate in such a discussion. But as I thought about this whole question of conflict of interest, it started to get more and more complicated for me. I think there's really a broader issue here. The whole idea of conflict of interest for the Board of Supervisors has many aspects to it. For example, just because I might personally prefer or benefit in some way, financially or in other less tangible ways, if on an issue that the board is voting for, am I at risk of being accused of conflict of interest or unethical behavior by residents who disagree with my vote? I've been sitting in on meetings quite regularly since November of 2021. And it really seems to me that we're all residents of the town of Oregon. Everything that's discussed here affects us personally.
About 30 seconds.
Oh, okay, so here's the thing. I think there are 2 things. I think the board has a responsibility to promote rich discussions, keep everyone involved, invite residents to help solve problems. And I think the residents owe themselves as well to respect the work of the board, do their best to stay in the loop about issues being considered by the board. Go to board meetings in person or on Zoom. Contact the supervisors directly when you have a question or concern. Okay, and then I'm done. I want to just say one last thing. In conclusion, I think the town of Oregon is in very good shape today because as it turns out, I am not the only applicant under consideration today. So thank you for everybody who is interested.
Thank you.
Yeah, Brian. I can't stand, so I don't. That's fine. So you don't have to follow. I didn't prepare a speech. You do know who I am. I've run for the board position. I've lost by a little bit. I think it was fair to continue the process after the amount of votes I got. I reflected a lot after it. I did my job. I did the work. People made their choice. Summertime, thinking about doing other things. But I had a lot of support. And I wanted to do this for a reason. And I'm going to stick to that process. some of you know that I research things well. And I fight hard for what I believe in. The ethics thing came up and I can't help but think that that's kind of a coincidence, but. I made charges on some people as a very desperate attempt to be heard. And I stated in a meeting before, I never wanted to cause anybody financial harm in doing that. That was not my purpose. My purpose was to be heard and stop the process. I had a right to do that. And it was no disrespect to anybody who makes these decisions. I know you all work hard, you have your own ideas of what's best for everybody. At the time, I thought there's a good group of people that live in one area of the town, and I don't think that that reflected everybody in the whole town. And that's where I felt there was a conflict. There was financial gain. The statement was made at a meeting that there would be gain from going to that process. That I feel like I need to explain to everyone that again, it wasn't, I'm glad that no one got charged. That wasn't my purpose. Anyway, as I've been disabled, I have time to give back and I want to give it back. I think it's the right thing to do. When you have time, you should do what you can to help out your community. That's really why I want to do this. I can fight just as hard with a group of people to make good decisions, do research. My experience on working in committees, I worked many years at the executive board of our union, was in scrambles. I organized it, I put it together, got everything in order so that they could follow procedures. I have a lot of experience doing board work. As far as research, since I've been retired, I've been a genealogist for years. I've spent most of my time in the winter researching families, unknown fathers, lost kids, and using DNA and my ability to do family tree research and finding parents. And I've had a couple news stories covering my work and finding people's dads. And I think to the date, I've found about 12 fathers. And I do that all as volunteer work. My joy is to see they're reuniting. I'd like to just say that, I'm here, I'm serious about it. I did the whole process. I think that should be looked at because there was a fair amount of votes that wanted me in here. And I think those people should be thought about in the process. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Yep.
Jason?
Jason Marshall. Self-employed farmer, lifetime since high school. Currently run a farming operation, trucking operation. We recently got into the bar business in Brooklyn. Lifetime resident of the township. Qualifications. Currently, we run about 14 full-time employees. I'm very good with working with employees, figuring out problems. We have a customer base of 200 plus through the farm that I have to manage, make work, discuss. There's always issues. And the same as what the board has here. Qualifications, I mean, I'm very familiar with the township. In our farming business, we do a lot of custom work. We run across roughly 20,000 acres a year, which is not all in our township, obviously. But I've literally been on pretty much every piece of property, farm property in our township over the years. A lot of knowledge of the roads, been numerous times, I mean, I've called Abel or Ryan, hey, you guys see this washout on the road? We probably travel the roads more than the 2 patrolmen do. Just with my line of work, that's what happens. Financially, money managing, I mean, I started with 0. Obviously, I can manage money, figure out books, figure out cash flow, which I know is a big deal with the town position. I mean, go from 0 to multi-million-dollar business, doing very well. No handouts. So I mean, the skill and the mindset of the employees, the money is there. I will agree with Brian, this whole process needed to happen. I'd love to see that ordinance kind of fine-tuned a little bit. There was a couple of us that did run and did not get on board, and that's why we're going through this process, and it needs to happen. Like Brian, I had a lot of votes for not really trying. Put my name on the ballot, here we went. I didn't go out and put hundreds of flags out, hundreds of flyers, and I still had a mid, 400 or 500 votes. I don't know what the exact number was. Could have I went out and spent money and put flyers up everywhere? Absolutely. That's not me. I don't like to brag myself up. I don't like to, advertise like that. I guess I should have if I wanted to get on the board. So I guess the other thing is I think we need a diverse board. I think it was in the past one-sided for a long time. We got it diverse, but now I think we're going the other direction. Now we're kind of one-sided. We don't have a farm aspect in there. We don't have somebody that understands the land, the farming community. I think the land is a big part of the township. And I think that should be represented. Pretty much all I got. Short and sweet. Thanks, guys.
And Laura.
All right, I am a terrible public speaker, so we're gonna see how this goes. So many of you know me, I'm Laura Wilmot. The reason why I applied is kind of twofold. So my educational background and my career background is both in political science and finance. So I have over a decade of just fiscal responsibility, creating budgets, helping with budget plans, both from just like the consumer level and the business level. And then in addition to that, my current role is creating policies and procedures at a company. So I am pretty well versed in policy language and document language as there as well. I have a degree in finance and a degree in political science. My father was a lifelong town supervisor in my hometown of Swamico. And I helped him campaign from a young age, put up signs, and just attended all of those meetings. And so I've always just been really well rooted in the communities that I live in. I have volunteered with local fire departments, the Red Cross, United Way, stuff like that. I do like to be actively involved. And as many of you know, as soon as I moved here, I started attending almost every meeting I could, including the plan committee meetings. So I think just a passion in me grew from being part of a community and wanting to do that, which is why I put my name forward. I have been to a lot of these meetings. I have seen what you guys have been up against, both from the community level, from the budget level, and just what you guys have in your docket. I would say one thing about me is I realize I am not elected. I am being voted on by the board. I am not running. And so I'm trying to come in with absolutely no political agenda other than maybe helping in the budget where I can. I'm not here to pass anything or accomplish anything for any political reasons. I just want to help where I can. So that is me, nice and brief.
Excellent, thank you. That ends the presentation portion of the agenda. I just want to say thanks to each of you. I'm sure you know the harsh reality is only one person is going to continue on to fill the vacancy. but your interest in the town, you can feel that you're all interested in the town.
I think the process got you some good candidates.
I agree. I do have to say though, we didn't put a public comments section in here. We didn't do anything like that. So we just need to minimize the back and forth.
No one to compromise.
Okay, the next agenda item is nominations, and just to clarify for the board, at least I know we said it, a few minutes ago, but the nomination process, any of you can nominate one of the candidates. The nomination would be seconded to continue on to voting. After the nominations are, whichever nominations are made and seconded, they'll continue the voting. Before the voting, we'll have a chance to discuss and make any kind of supporting comments that you want to make toward the candidate.
Just for clarification, you have the. See, a board member can nominate one, and only one? Or can they
You could-
nominate one
I
and a
think,
second one?
I mean, the assumption is that's who you're supporting. Correct. Whoever you're nominating. It was built in it, so one is the answer.
And as well as seconding,
Mhm.
that's not limited,
Correct.
so you can second more than once.
Yeah. Good. All right, with that, let me open nominations and I'll hear from anyone who cares to make them.
I'll nominate Lori Fitzgerald.
And any second for that? Oh, can you hear me? I'll second. Okay, any other nominations?
I will nominate Brian Richards.
And any second to Arlen's nomination? Hearing none, Brian does not continue on. Any other nominations? Laura? Any second to that?
Second,
And Arlen second, so Laura continues on. And I remember, one of the things with if your supported candidate applicant was already nominated, you do not have to renominate. Okay, so what we have then is Lori Fitzgerald and Laura Wilmot continuing on to the voting. I'll close the nominations. Any discussions about in support of the candidate? Not required. Any? Steve, no. Arlen, any comments?
no, pass.
No. Kate?
No.
And Jennifer, you can vote on this too. So any comments from you? Okay. All right, then if we could do, actually, Stephanie, could you do the roll call vote because Jennifer's going to be voting in this? Would you mind?
Yes, so just ask each person.
And each board member, then you'd say who you are voting for.
Yep,
fill in.
definitely.
Great.
I'll start at Kate. I'll go this way.
Okay, I vote for Lori Fitzgerald.
Thank you. Carl,
Lori Fitzgerald,
Arlen Kai,
I'll go for Laura.
Steve
I
Griffin,
vote for Laura.
Jennifer Hansen.
Lori Fitzgerald.
Thank you.
And that is 3 votes for Lori, and that's a majority vote. So Lori, if she live on. So Lori will be
She received how many?
3. Yeah, 3. Yeah, the 2 for Laura, 1, 3 for Lori Fitzgerald. So Lori will fill the vacancy and be sworn in this month. And then begin serving immediately after that. I believe it's the first item on the agenda is the swearing in. And then that completes agenda item number 5. Next item is,
Thank you all for applying.
yes. There are, and there, of course, there always are media openings that occur throughout the year if you're interested in certain things. Another option to be involved. All right, the next item, item number 6 is related to Sheldon's position at the Torque. And there's the letter.
There's no public comment on any of this, right?
Not in this meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You did a good job.
You'll find in the packet, I think you'll find it. Found it somewhere
It's on
else.
page 34.
It's been posted way back. Oh,
I expect to be a little more,
sometime, I don't know if it was within the last year, but there was discussion about Sheldon's position at the Torque, and he'd already assumed responsibility as sort of the lead worker out there. There was discussion back then about increasing his hourly wage. It hasn't happened yet. So what I'm really doing is just bringing that back to recommend $20.25 per hour as his wage, and then the title change to collection center team lead. And does anybody have questions about that?
Could you repeat the last part? It says, I'm just reading the 50% of 21.5.
And then
so-
and the rest of that sentence, then his title would be changed to the team lead
Okay,
at the collection center.
okay,
In, I think in our, I don't know if it's an ordinance or what it is, but it's called the collection center instead of the town of Oregon recycling center.
okay.
That's actually, that statutes probably. So if, any discussion about it? And anyone care to make a motion to approve?
Yes, I make a motion to approve Sheldon being given the title of collection center team lead and be raising his hourly rate to reflect the responsibility that he's been having for some time.
Any second to that?
I'll second it.
Okay, seconds it. Any further discussion? And hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. And that passes. Agenda item number 7 is about the engineering firm for the Windridge Road extension into Ireland. Do you have anything to say about that? Is that part of your
That's
plan commission?
that'll be for a plan commission, and that we're waiting for the developer agreement, which would be having a good number of technical, well, one of the design of the work that's going to be happening there. And we're eagerly awaiting that so we can be forwarding it on to having it be analyzed by an engineering firm and also the road and safety committee.
And does that, here's my understanding, but correct me if I'm wrong, is that what we're doing is proposing 2 different engineering firms. That
We're looking at 2 different engineering firms. This is the first, this packet was the first I had seen. No, it's just a tree. There was a possible third or fourth one that could have.
Greg Hoffmeister is a private engineer that we've asked to give us quotes, but he never got back.
Correct.
So there's only 2 at this point.
At
Yes, there's just JT Engineering and then, yeah. So, you know, we're going to want to choose, the board's going to want to choose one of these so that we can get the plans that Gary engineer has already drawn up to review.
But we do have developer plans now.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Mhm.
Okay,
Mhm.
well, then we
So
have
then
them.
we need one of these guys to look at them. And so we just have to decide which one we want to represent the town between the two. And if you notice, Larry looked at the contracts and he had some comments. I sent that out in a previous email. That is on page 50 of it. He just made some comments between the two that we had received.
Is it reasonable then to have the plan commission follow up with the firms to get answers to Larry's questions?
I would
I don't know. what
I
timing
don't,
is on it.
I would suspect that, given that this is a contract that the town board would decide which to go with, this seems to me within the purview
Yes.
of the town board.
Okay.
Not the plan commission. And I think that at this point, I mean, unless you see, Larry didn't bring up any super big red flags from what I read through with his, it was just
Right.
more technical
Right.
type things. So none of them to me sounded like super impossible tasks to get over with either one of the firms. So I think it's just a matter of preference. We have done some work with JT Engineering on the corner of Fish Hatchery and Lincoln.
Right.
So we do have some, you know, but that's not to say that we couldn't go with the other firm. JT's local, I think the other firm may not be. So that might be two differences. I think it would be a lot to ask the plan commission to review these and give you a recommendation, if that's what you're looking for as a town board. I think that that's I don't know what you would be looking from the plan commission to give you in terms of approving the contract.
No, it's just looking at who would wrangle getting answers. to the
Yeah, I
question.
think
And but if they're not
questions-
significant, then
I feel like these questions, I think if we pose these questions to the engineering firm, they would probably be pretty easily answered.
So we sort of want to make this decision sooner.
Yeah, I don't think that there's a bad choice of either one of these firms. I think they're both. I don't think Larry brought up any red flags with either one of them that he thought.
I mean, it almost comes down to a coin flip again to me. It's kind of random. I don't know. You know, I don't have any particular points pro or con on either one of these.
Well, they both have a local office.
They do, okay, yeah,
They
Yeah.
both have a local office. I didn't see, I was rummaging through the JT contract, and I didn't see their rates. Did I miss that?
they had, because our packets get so quite large, I probably have included the rates with maybe a separate attachment that I maybe didn't include in the packet.
Okay.
I can print one off for you if you would like to look at the rates.
Are
I'm
they,
sure have
are they
it.
comparable?
Yeah, I think pretty comparable. I'd have to go ahead and look at them again.
And these fees are not borne by the town.
Right.
Or did you, and,
No, it just, don't want them to be,
oh,
so far apart.
Let me go get those for you. Ron.
Okay. Even so, we should not be,
Oh, this
we
is
have,
valid.
that's the
that's,
EMC has their own rates and the JT did not.
right.
So, we don't want to be placing a burden upon
Yep.
the applicant.
Mhm.
That's usually something every contract that I have, through the rates.
Right, right, well, right. Well, it's a difference.
And it also gets down to how they. Even have some experience as to how they book it too. Wouldn't have any coffee board if it wasn't. I'm being facetious now.
Thank you.
Okay, just wait. For a full disclosure, one of the members of EMCS or an employee of EMCS is also on our road and traffic safety committee. Although he had already disclosed that he would not be doing anything.
Well, on the JT side, we also have Doug, who is representing the town in
The fire
the
department.
village's station committee. So
We're just,
we can't avoid it.
good. So we just have both of those.
I mean, just at a very quick glance, it looks like JT's fees are slightly higher per hour.
He's in that.
Well, I guess there's a mix then, I suppose. Probably one, it's not consistent, yeah.
I would add that when the bid from EMCS was, there was a question of how much municipal experience these engineers had. And I believe that the EMCS, and I should have followed up, but I know they do have some municipal work experience. I just can't remember what community they work with. So,
But JT has worked with us before.
yes, they have too, but
And has EMCS done any, other than participating on the roads committee, any work for the town?
not that I'm aware of in any of the time that I've been here.
Okay. Man, really, I'm just looking for something to be different.
much.
Right, I'm just looking for a difference to make any kind of judgment on. You know,
I think this is a good luck at that one.
kind of.
We're. It looks like we have two respectable firms with good experience. So this is a hard choice. If since Abel is here, can I ask you a question? Have you worked with either MCS or JT Engineering before?
I mean, we dealt with them just a little bit on, like I said, the fish hatchery intersection with Doug. That was Doug at JT, I believe. Wasn't it, Jennifer? I want to say that, but
I would say, I think they both were instrumental in helping us when we were doing the BIL.
They were.
Yeah,
grant applications. I think both firms were,
yeah, I mean, I seem to,
you know, Doug was especially,
I like-
helped us.
I like Doug. Doug seemed like a very knowledgeable and I don't remember the name of the gentleman that came in with them. But they seem very knowledgeable on our municipal level, on our town level. But I would have a hard time picking either one. As far, I'm not allowed to help you other than, you know, the dollar amount, probably.
I mean, I've met both of the people too, and they're both Corey and Doug are very
Yeah.
nice. You know, if we were gonna, maybe the only way to decide is that JT is right here in the village.
Does it come down, let's go back to experience working in municipalities. Does one have considerably more experience in similar projects than the other firm?
And I think that that would be the only thing that I guess, if you weren't gonna make a decision tonight, is that we would ask both of them to give us a list of other communities they worked with.
That would
If that
be-
would,
I'd be more comfortable with that, but I haven't been in Iliad and no connection nor familiar with either.
Do we have a, let's see. Do we need to be having this decision today, or can we ask that of them?
Take your time.
Okay,
You're sure?
Careful what you wish for.
to Jerry,
No.
because it's Jerry's project,
Right.
so I want to make sure that we defer to him, that
Oh,
we're.
yeah, okay.
That, so I think what I'm hearing is we'd like to take Larry's advice and reach out to both of these and get feedback on what other municipalities they've done work for. Is that what you're thinking, Arlen?
That's what I'm thinking.
And then, okay, we're at the end of May, so June 13th is our board meeting. I can amend the agenda to include it. I would think by June 13th, we'd have answers back and then make a decision June 13th.
I would.
I mean,
They're both bidding for the same project. I would think they'd want to get their information back as diligently as possible.
work with your time schedule, Jerry.
Well, I have delayed effective date of July 30th for the certified survey map. However, because of the fact that the town didn't have an engineering firm in place when I submitted my engineering plan, I think we have a good case with Dane County to get an extension of the delayed effective date. So, I just want to see the town do the right thing for the town. And as I've said, all the engineers, they go to the same school, they study from the same textbooks. And it's just a matter of fine tuning between my engineer and the town's engineer, so it'll all work out. There might be one thing, since you've given me the floor for a minute, might be one thing I'd be coming back to ask you is that when my road builder is ready to start moving dirt, I might ask you for an early start permit so we don't hold him up and we keep the project going, and while we're working out the dotting the i's and crossing the t's. So, I'll be in touch with my road builder and we'll see what his schedule is, and if I need an early start date, I'll ask you. I'll ask you for one.
I can't see that we would not have a decision on this by the 13th or on the 13th. I guess the only thing that would cause that would be if they don't reply for some reason, but I bet you we get a reply within 24 hours. So if the 13th is good, then
Yeah,
it's not that far away.
no,
2 weeks. Less than 2 weeks.
Okay, so that item then will postpone to June 13th. Next item is discussion possible action on ordinance 98. That's the maintenance of premises and structures in the town.
Arlen, could I ask you a question?
Certainly.
Okay. We had a gal come in here today and she has a neighbor's tree. Branches hang over onto her yard. Now, normally we've said anything that's in your yard, you can trim. So you can trim the trees that are hanging over into your yard. Her concern is, well, it would cost me $1,000 to take down the trees, and I feel like it's his responsibility because this tree branch could harm me, kill me, somebody in the backyard. Is there anything in this proposed ordinance that would cause the town to have to get involved in that kind of dispute over a tree that's on between two neighboring properties?
What happens now when there's any dispute between neighbors?
It's always civil, and trees, the only thing we tell them is that you can cut down, trim anything that's hanging over your yard. You can't take down the tree. If the tree is on the neighbor's property, you can't take that down, but if the branches are hanging over, you can take that down.
No, this would not be, right now, this is not necessary. If you're looking at something that was where my question was leading. What do we do now when there is any disagreement or feud between neighbors? This maybe not feud, but discussion between neighbors that is unresolved. How do we deal with that now? Other than a tree hanging over the fence?
Okay, other than a tree, well, if it's zoning issues, like this person has crap or stuff in their yard, zoning will take care of that, the zoning
That's a zoning,
inspector. Yep,
yes.
other than that, we would have no involvement, other than fences. Because we do have fence viewers, which is a whole nother aspect of.
Does that have anything to do with trees?
Right now,
I don't think the trees are involved in the fence viewing. I think the fence is a separate.
Something separate, which could be a dispute between neighbors, but any current dispute between neighbors outside of zoning, outside of fence viewing would be just a civil matter.
Yes, and that civil matter is either handled by a court or a complaint to somebody, whether it be the sheriff or the town clerk.
So the tree situation that I'm proposing, this ordinance wouldn't involve the town having to get involved in that.
No.
Okay.
This ordinance is right now, the intent of the policy was to be having it be a health and safety issue to be facilitating that health and safety aspect. If it's a big dead branch that's hanging that's flopping in the breeze, that could be a maintenance.
What's a safety issue?
That could be a maintenance and safety issue.
So would that then be covered under this ordinance then?
No, if it's so I don't think if it's a health and safety issue, if it's just healthy branches reaching over the fence, no.
I guess what I'm asking is, do we want trees to be in this ordinance? Or do we eliminate
I think
trees?
that should be a separate, I think that'd be a separate thing. This had, the policy committee made a big thing about having things not be about appearance and aesthetics, and that trees could be that kind of a situation. That I love shade trees, but I don't love your shade tree in my yard. This is trying to deal with the health and safety issue that
So this was crossed out. I mean, I'm looking here on one that I haven't edited.
It's on page 53.
Yeah, that's what.
A G said any plant, tree, or other vegetation that constitutes a hazard to any person, such as a dead or dying tree or vine. Now, and that's one of the things that you guys crossed off that you didn't want.
because it was listed under this whole nuisance thing. Because it was not dealing with the health and safety.
Well, G is though.
G,
G is, it definitely is. Well, I think you can make the argument that a lot of these, A through whatever turns out to
okay,
be.
but it doesn't say where. Because this is, if you have, I take G and I would defy you to find a woodlot in small or large areas that do not have
Right.
dead and dying trees and falling over trees, as I do. And I defy anybody to find a woodlot that doesn't have poison ivy in it.
Right.
And I defy. See, Abel, how much poison ivy do we have in the town's ditches?
It's all over the roads.
So we would
Just
we would
ask
be
it,
finding
Ryan, you'll
ourselves
find
being in violation of a lot of what this is, so. So if this is not that hazard, like I say, that dead tree in my woodlot is a hazard.
I think some of these could be more specific and be included. You know, if if the tree is a hazard and it's where, say, other residents might travel.
Okay, but
I know it's very broad, right?
it's
very
incredibly broad.
But I think it could be, rather than striking it, I think it could be more specific, and I think that that would also cover your poison ivy and other things that are typical.
There's a lot of discussion about that, and I think going back to trying to keep it in the frame of the health and wellness of individuals, and I understand why these got crossed out, and quite frankly, I circled G quite a while ago myself, something just like this. I do have some questions in that. I'm not really sure how to go about that, but I mean, that's one of those things that many people have the idea of. I don't like that big ass tree hanging on happens to my property. Does it come down to just a civil dispute? Does it come down to I'm the property owner, so I can go up and cut that at the line, which I'm not going to do because that's a hazard to me. Yeah, but then I think you had just said it, that could be something for a different section of a different ordinance. So,
But, okay,
I'm fence sitting.
if you have some concern, there was kind of a broad reaching discussion on the appearance. And that goes back on the page 1 where it has any deterioration, any appearance of deterioration, any nuisance, any, that's any and all. And it's one thing to be having somebody who's come into the town who we've had complaints where some did not like their neighbor having less of a house or less of a yard than they had. And looking over the fence and saying, that's a nuisance. That's a thing that the ordinance says you can't do. And that's a little snooty, and we're not a neighborhood association that is setting standards for our immediate neighborhood.
I discussed this issue with a lawyer, a lot of these things, and with other town residents. And there were quite a few residents that wanted a lot of this to stay because they were in a situation living in Dunn where people in their backyard were keeping garbage not covered. Now, we want to take that out of here. But the other thing that the lawyer said was, you know what, if there's a complaint like that, it's going to go to court. And if it's something like you're saying, it's going to be dismissed.
Well, should it even come to the court? Because that also is.
Well, it could anyway.
I'm not so sure it will.
I mean, I'll just right now while I'm talking. I think we need to do some sort of a compromise on this because it seems like everything that your committee did, it took nearly everything out that was an accepted ordinance in Dunn. And so I would like to compromise and get rid of some of the words, but put some back. And I think that's what we need to try to do today.
We don't know what the purpose of the Dunn ordinance was. We have a specific purpose that we have a specific direction or challenge to us that has a very much of an endangerment to the health and safety and not the appearance. So the committee was still very strong on getting rid of the appearance aspect, but making sure that there was health and real health and safety issues. Let me add, if you want to have some of the extremes, you have B here. that you have that includes any and it's talking about a construction site,
What page you on?
53. Yeah, they're talking a construction site. There's so many OSHA requirements on the construction sites. There's so many building and zoning things that most of that is pretty superfluous. And by the time you would file a complaint, if somebody hasn't, filled in the, they're gonna get more action from an OSHA complaint or building inspector complaint or zoning complaint.
Okay.
Than trying to take this to the courts because somebody has an open basement, excuse me.
But that is
Or
hazard to
the
people's
icebox
health.
or the refrigerators, that's a real tort. I mean, you get a tort, you get somebody with that.
Yeah, but
That's a quick.
And that's also, so we could start enforcing it from our town. I mean, I would like to get rid of the words deterioration, appearance of deterioration. I would like to get rid of so old, dilapidated, all that stuff. I'd like to get rid of characterized, very broken, cracked. I'd like to get rid of all that. But a lot of these things I don't really want to get rid of. I mean, we didn't ask to have the whole thing totally changed and have it was go on.
Well, part of the objection that I had to have, but to me, was this rather broad-based thing, that this nuisance part is not getting into the health and safety.
But maybe we need that in our town, not only for the specific,
Yeah,
but for other
then
situations.
let's advertise it as a full public hearing that we would like to have this and start getting citizen input. This is big broad stuff and starting to get into
Yeah.
neighborhood beautification type things.
That's your opinion.
Does it?
Yeah.
Pardon?
Okay,
Does it?
Ryan.
I think,
The,
I don't agree with you on that one. I didn't at the meeting agree with stuff on that. I agree with you. When one of the people brought up the Bergamot community, that was to me totally uncalled for comment. Worrying about what Bergamot's going to do, Bergamot's going to do. I think there's things in there that for example, there's some things we talked about, Arlen, that we're gonna take some notes and get the opinion of the attorney. Did that happen? Did you get?
No, we're here to be directing this to the attorney.
Yeah.
And give instructions there to that, so.
Let me double check. Jennifer, did Larry see the original? He saw the original.
He drafted the original. I guess part of what I was wondering is the people that are gonna enforce it, from what I read, are the three people, which is the fire chief, the building inspector, and public works supervisor. And I talked to the building inspector about it. And I think what, in my opinion, maybe should be what would happen is having those three people that are going to be actually enforcing what's in here is having them give their opinion on what you would want them, because they're gonna have to be the actual boots on the ground that are gonna have to actually enforce this.
So they can
And-
say whether this is a reasonable point or not, I'm never gonna go to a home because of that particular thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, our building inspector, they're gonna be faced with actually enforcing these, so.
Right.
And I talked to Glenn Linsmeyer yesterday because we're having a meeting tomorrow and he thinks it's silly to take all of this out. He just said, if you're gonna do it, just do an efficient, nice, thorough ordinance. That was his opinion.
well.
Well, the flow could be the three people involved, and here's a revised draft, and then it gets from past Larry. Although we're really.
I have not, any of the edits that have come since then have not gone to the attorney. Nothing has gone to the attorney except for the original ordinance.
Right. So I
So,
mean, it's still up in the air, but with your suggestion about having those three involved, there needs to be a step after that, I think. And I think-
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
yeah,
I do think you have brought up a very good point as to if there is a complaint, how is it processed? How is it enforced? If we take a number of things, such as the junkyard out front, that can be as much of a complaint to the zoning zoning handles things outside the building, not inside the building. So debris or things that are piling up or the cars, that's a zoning thing. If somebody just starts doing the salvage operation, outside their yard and just has a collection of the cars, that's a zoning issue. That they will be reinforcing as a complaint, because that's supposed to be a license thing. So there's a number of these things. Now, if you're going to be having poison ivy is not a fun thing to be having. But good luck in stopping that.
Right.
And I don't think an ordinance is going to stop it.
Okay, so,
So if you're wanting to find out who's got to enforce it,
I think we need to compromise on this, and we somehow are not getting anywhere doing that right now. And maybe it is the right way to talk to some of these
I
other
think that would
people,
be very
because I
good.
think this was so one-sided, and it's like everything's Xed off, it's redacted or whatever. And I think some of that should be brought back, and then that's what the board would vote on, not just this one committee that decided, let's get rid of 75% of the ordinance. And this kind of stuff.
right, and I think that's the way we're going though, with Jennifer's suggestion, is to bring in the trio of experts. And then would your group facilitate that? And you would be the ones to talk, or is this a work session?
I think you should do, I think the committee has decided what they want, and it's pretty much one-sided. So I think we need to come up with some people that are going to be more open-minded and look at the whole thing, a bigger picture of it.
I agree
You
with that. I guess my eyes go down the first page to the red section in number 1. If it's, yes, we are looking at the health and welfare of the individuals, but we do also talk about the interior and the exterior of the properties.
correct.
And I think some of this, that's all red line. Yes, I looked over many times myself. I'm not totally comfortable with it. I think there's things that we need to have other people come in. I think there's things that probably should stay in here, Arlen, and
Right.
I would also be wondering, how do we contact the people at Health and Social Services, or who is what are the departments of the county? They're looking to welfare, adult welfare.
I don't know the exact name of the department, but I could contact Leslie Fox, who's the sheriff deputy working with that, and get the correct
And
name.
who,
With that property.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
who in the county is taking care of it? I mean,
Yeah.
this is I am missing the title, but this is also something that I'm a little disturbed that they're not involved in this. Or why are they not involved?
They won't go in because of the hazards that could be in there. That's what the
I-
fire chief told me.
I need to hear that from them.
Go ahead then.
And that would be, who is it that's responsible? What are the responsibilities? And what is it that needs to can be done?
I don't know that I'm gonna be able to get all three, like Abel, Glenn, and Tony. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get all three of them here at a night meeting.
Right.
So probably could maybe try to get Glenn here at a night meeting to talk to you guys. I mean, but I could send it an email out and ask for them to provide written comments.
I think you might have to do it that way.
Might have to.
Without having those three entities. And then I guess then the second end of that is I talked to Roger Lane. I sent an email around. He looked at the ordinances, but I know there's some conflict between what zoning covers and what the ordinance covers. And, I don't know if you went through that ordinance with that intention of saying we're taking out what zoning already covers, or we want to cover more than what zoning covers.
I think we're willing to cover more
Okay,
what zoning was good, because the zoning was limited to the exterior.
so are you gonna then focus only on the interior then?
No, I think
Okay.
it's a combination of
Okay.
interior and exterior
Okay.
to the. If we're looking at trying to get to a health and safety action,
Yeah, I think Glenn can be really helpful.
So Jennifer, did you say that you'll draft something?
I can draft an email and ask them. I think what I would do though is I would send the original ordinance as it's written to them and ask them for their comments, since they would be the ones that would be enforcing it.
While we include the building inspector in here, I'd be very curious as to what the building inspector counts as their authority. Since this is a outside contracted firm
Right.
that is only dealing with construction projects in process. And doesn't, I don't know that they're doing anything that's outside of that purview of work. in
So
prog-
how they're paid is by the construction, you're right, by the project cost, they get a percentage of it. So if we were going to do something like asking them to go and inspect a building, there would be probably a flat rate fee that we would have to pay them to do that.
Well, granted, but then
Yeah.
do they, what authority do they assume?
We
To
would
be
grant
following up.
them, the town would grant them that authority as the building inspector.
Through this? I'd be curious as to what the actions that they would take as a company. I'd be curious. Will they follow through on that to help with the health and safety? It's an open question. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, I
I
guess
realize that
we could
we
ask
would,
them.
that if we sent them over there, we would be paying them. Understood.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think that would be also Public Works.
Yeah.
Since Public Works is on an hourly. They're in the closet there, and we'll take, it's in the closet.
Find them, guys.
Good, good.
So our plan then is to, Jennifer, you'll contact those folks and see what they say. Committee, or group committee, nothing at this point,
If
nothing
the group
more.
committee, I think the group committee or members of it should be notified that this is happening and that they are welcome to come in to be part of that discussion
Yes.
in the audience or otherwise.
Okay, so we're gonna postpone this item. I don't think June 13th is gonna be reasonable for.
I was just gonna ask you the same
Into
question.
July, I think.
Okay, so move this from the agenda.
Unless we feel this rises to the level of a special meeting.
I think it was a good start. I mean. So like anything, there's going to be a lot of red lines and.
Yeah.
I think it's a great time to get, I'm.
Okay.
For me personally, a lot more discussion going on this and other outside experts. I've got my own different feelings about this, about liking to have enough. Like a better term, enough ammunition for those in authority to do something about it. I'd hate to see words and sentences and lines, things crossed out. That would have otherwise given them the authority to help out the residents. So I don't know that.
So we'll postpone till July. And then related, is there anything we can or should do in the near term for the Eisenhower property? I think the answer is no.
Yeah.
Without the ordinance, right? But
No, that's what.
other than, maybe along the lines of what you were saying about, okay, why is, what's getting in the way of the county for doing this?
Yes. This is a health and safety, they've got protective
I
services.
think that's it.
Yeah, they're supposed to be, this is right up their line for protective services.
Okay, but I'm just telling you what Glenn Linsmeyer said, and he deals with
I
that.
know.
He said they will not go in there because they don't even know what they could get.
Let's get that from them, because that's the second hand, that's second
Okay,
hand.
so go ahead.
Appreciate, you
Go
may be
ahead.
right, but.
Okay, anything else on that agenda item? If not, then we're on to item number 9, and that is discussion about the loan application for the road.
Okay, so I got Abel here.
Can't hide anymore. Can't hide anymore.
Okay, so Bureau of Commission of Public Lands loan application. So we have to send them this request form of what we want to borrow. Then they're gonna do, they evaluate what we want to borrow. And then they're gonna send us back and then we'll have to pass the resolution. And then we will actually borrow that money. So the original discussion of borrowing for Alpine Road was that we would be borrowing it And we would be replacing the 2020 roadwork loan that we took out. Well, I'm totally spacing on what road we did in 2020, but it doesn't really matter. So that loan, last payment is paid in 2024. When we borrow this money, we will actually accept the money after September 1st of this year. When we accept it after September 1st, it doesn't make our first payment due until 2025. Everyone makes sense? So this loan is going to replace the 2020 loan we took out for $250,000. So we can, and here I think it's asking us how we want the loan purpose, the loan amount, and the loan term. Typically, we've done 4-year loan, but being that we would be taking it out after September, a 4-year loan would make it be only 3 payments. Is everyone following me there? Because it's a little hard to.
It's a
Sorry.
4-year, it's a 4-year loan effective September 2023.
Right, but we're only, our first payments due in 25, 26,
And 27. Okay, which is
Yes.
4 years after 20.
Yes, but it's 3 payments. So it just makes your payments be much larger, I guess, is my point of the whole thing. You are allowed as a board to choose whatever loan terms you want, based upon, you know, a lot of times they talk about it based upon the work you're doing and how long that is going to last. So, you know, 3, 4 years, 5 years, 10 years, that's up to you. So what I'd like to try to do, and maybe we can't do it today, but what me and Abel were trying to work on is the amount of the loan we're gonna take out, the loan, and then secondly would be the loan term. So in your packet, you have the information on Alpine, that's on page 64. And this is what Abel came up with in terms of how much the road work is going to cost us just for Alpine, that $352.11. Now, unfortunately, when they were out there doing some tree trimming, there was $6,800 emergency tree removal. So that increased that amount by $6,800. Any more to add to that?
No, no, I think it's. Culverts were all replaced last year, so culverts are took care of.
So wait. So everything that's the Arbor systems quote, the 6,800. Some of that was going to be originally done by you and Ryan.
Yeah, we did all the lower stuff. They come in, did the high stuff. They come up and they brought their boom truck in, did the high stuff.
Right.
And then there was a tree that was dead and over power lines and otherwise that was cracked down through. So there, I wasn't gonna be able to remove that.
Okay, so that's the,
That's the 6,800, is it?
wait, I see a 6,800 here. Is that an addition to the 6,800 or that is the, how the 6,800?
I think it's actually an additional 2,400.
Right, it's a.
Yeah.
Yeah.
2,400,
Yeah.
and then they added 4,400.
Yeah,
There's a $4,400 emergency.
24.
Other way down, 4,400.
Yeah.
Was
Oh, there it
original.
is.
Yeah.
Additional hazard 24, so
So it's,
seems to be good sense.
Yeah.
To
well,
Yeah, the total for our
There's still a
system,
tree,
three
yeah.
6,800.
total was 6,800,
In essence, 2 of their projects, yes,
okay, and 2,400 of it was an emergency one,
correct, right.
which appears to have been good judgment to take care of the emergency.
Yes.
Okay. So getting back to kind of like where our loan is or what we're thinking, we put 450 in the budget for major road work. Our road work looks to be coming in somewhere around 355,000. That's
what do you?
not,
Pardon me.
It's a cramp.
I have a major ask.
Any bananas here?
What's asking?
Don't you hate it when that?
Pickle juice, magnesium. Sir, I get these periodically, nothing like, never in a situation like this. I'm very sorry.
Didn't you have a masseuse?
Could you hand me that bottle of water? Which?
Bananas are really good for muscle grapes, so I'm with that pickle juice.
I'm sorry,
Don't you hate it when that happens?
oh, God, yeah.
My dad worked at General Motors. And he'd come home and get ready for bed and he'd cramp up.
Oh,
What
my
can we get for
cats
you?
do
Can you
that
give us
all
some?
night.
I just have to breathe. Try to relax, try to stretch it in the correct position. And.
Charlie.
It's in your quad.
We had that rail across the one between the two rooms and he'd grab on that thing and just.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good.
It's hard to embarrass me so.
They're hot, so.
Actually, we do have,
I gotta stand up that.
we do have that,
Lions Center.
that from Brian.
Oh, the blow up bed?
No, that, don't we have the,
Oh, there's like,
Well, maybe. Just gonna try to walk it, walk. Sorry about that guy.
You can't help it.
Yeah. No, you're right. Just went to a hip surgeon this morning, he said part of that is it's all related. A lot of that does this one too.
the guys have one of those, zero gravity chairs, would anything like that?
You know,
He's standing around back in there.
I used to be smart enough where every once in a while I would just push back and just get up for a second and stretch and find the right point to do it.
Wiggle your
The
toes.
conversation was just so engaging, he forgot to
Oh,
say
it is.
that.
I mean, it's. Oh, Laura. It's just a.
What is he doing here?
So these are, this is their
Zero
sleeping.
gravity.
I have one of those.
Yeah, this, they sleep when they have to snowplow. So I said to him, I'm like, beds are in there, your beds are in there, so.
well, just take him home instead of leaving him.
We don't know. We don't know. anything. We don't know nothing about
Best chair for the.
the town. We don't know.
When I was over there, I actually.
It's better that you know that now, rather than be surprised later.
Oh, sorry, that's right.
No, no. That was no.
I just like attention, so.
Heel and toe, heel and toe.
Getting better by the way it looks.
Oh, yeah, it's. Seriously, one thing I found for an instant. Is. Pickle juice.
I know.
Right, sodium.
Yeah, that's a sodium.
They give little things of that pickle juice at some of the rest stops on 100-mile bike rides.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Where do you know that? I should have a tennis ball.
I just had surgery and you can only do liquids for 4 weeks.
Mhm.
And pickle juice is the one thing they say, make sure you sip on pickle juice because it's like helps your body retain the water and actually like keep your muscles intact.
Oh.
So liquids and pickle juice was essentially,
Cindy and I actually go to dinner at the. I don't know if you name drop at the Echo Tavern one night. This happened, the bartender. came over, Drink this.
yeah,
Oh, you right away.
yeah, you need that sodium.
Anyway, keep going. I'm sorry.
No,
I'm good as long as I'm on the stand.
don't sit on your glasses. That will hurt and hurt your glasses.
The old dollar store.
Okay, Jennifer. So what do you want or need today?
I was wondering what amount of money you would like to borrow.
Oh,
So, we have not only the cost, we typically are borrowing for the cost of the road work, and then we are going to borrow for any equipment that we need to purchase. Within the year. So if we were to do just Alpine Road and, the crack filling, we put 13,000 into the budget. There's $15,000 worth of work that they'd like to do. So that increases our need by 2,000. So kind of from the calculations that I have, that would be a 2023 loan amount of around 351,699. So we don't add typically 10%. into our, but you wanted to do 352. You want to look at it some more. This would not be doing anything for Marie. Found out that if Abel wants to speak of it, it found out that's a pretty expensive fix.
Yeah, we own our own excavator, but the project is bigger than our excavator. And then there might be some other alternative solutions to that culvert center replacement, so that's something I want to look into. And along with the culvert that's there, there's a curb and gutter goes down Marie, and there's big concrete drainage ways, and those are getting undermined and coming apart, so they need to be pulled and replaced. So it's gonna be a fairly large project, so I think it'd be better to look at next year. Do that.
This is more of a 24 project.
Yeah.
We're,
Cause I'm you'll look into lining that culvert too, instead of replacing it. They have ways now they can line those. So instead of that culvert is 20+ feet deep. So instead of digging up the road and digging all that out, maybe there's a way that we can line that culvert instead, so.
Interesting.
That'd certainly be worth looking into.
Yeah.
What we're looking at right now, sort of a one snapshot of now. Our goal is to try and have something that's going to be a consistent borrowing loan payment package into the future, that we don't spike our revenue needs. Do we have that? Where do we sit? We don't know that. We don't have a good road projection for 24, 25, 46.
Well, would you like to know what we talked about today? We talked about 24 being that Marie Road project, which would be about 50,000. And Netherwood, which would include Matson, which is what he thinks about 3.5 miles,
Yeah, something like that, I believe, so.
which would be 70,000. So the 2024 would sort of be your kind of your off year.
Okay.
Okay, and then 2025, 26, we would be looking at Judd, Raven Oaks, and seal coating Hampton Hills, which would be another year to need, would be another funding year, another loan year. Abel said you have to look at the roads, see how the winters.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, if you're basing upon the little bit that we talked about today, that was kind of how we were
Yeah, there's
anticipating needing funding.
a lot of dollars can be spent.
Well, I'm sure. We had some discussions before though about Netherwood and Madison Circle being this year, didn't we? Or we were just.
We did, and they decided they were gonna do, you can explain it.
Yeah, this year Ryan and I are just going to go out, and do our poor man wedging, we call it.
Okay,
And get some of the rutting took out of it,
okay,
and then let it sit for the winter, and then next year they'll seal coat over top of that, so. So there'll be some maintenance stuff that Ryan and I can do this year with
Okay.
cold patch. And then next year will be, and same with up in Madison, up there, we'll kind of run both them areas.
okay, that
And,
works.
yeah,
And there's a
Okay, good.
culvert replacement, or you replaced them already,
in
Netherwood.
Netherwood, yes, there is a need to this year. We have a culvert we're going to replace. Culvert is laying out there for when we're ready, so.
Okay. So. Different, so we don't care about the question marks for this loan.
That was, this slide was from last month.
Okay,
And so I didn't get a chance to talk to Abel until this morning, and then figured out that Murray Road is a no-go for this year because of the cost and just the actual work could be different than what they thought.
But looking more for 2024.
Right. So basically, we're going to be paying off a loan in 24. The loan we would be taking off would be replacing that loan.
Mhm.
The next loan would be paid off in 25. So we're gonna look at wanting to replace that loan in 25, 26, which is what we were thinking that other big road project would be with a combination of seal coating and possibly repaving.
okay. So then the 612,199 is the magic number for now.
Well, and that would include equipment.
Right.
So,
Yep.
there's the component of equipment. They would like the F-550. And then the new in-loader is something that has been discussed, tossed back and forth quite a bit. And that it's in there, and that could be part of this loan package. Or you could choose to, but you'd have to ask them. Because there is gonna need to be a new plow truck, probably with the next.
Just to be able to keep things updated and, try to stay within that 10 to 15 years on plow trucks. The unloader goes back to 2000 or is it even older than that? I don't even know what year that thing is, but it's, it's really lost its value, and I'd like to get to a position where when we go to trade things off, they're actually worth something, with our municipal discounts that we get. Plus that, if you can keep them in a little better rotation, it's more beneficial, so.
Do you know if there are
But-
supply issues with either
No,
the truck or the?
the 550, I think is fairly close. I think they can find them or get those.
Okay,
It's the bigger ones, the Peterbilt's, the Internationals, those are 2 years out.
okay.
The payloader sounds like the payloader could be, if we order one, that could be within 6-8 months
Okay.
as well, so.
So then in this scenario, if we had this the way it is, you would take technically next year off, and then you'd look at borrowing again in 25, which would be then including a plow truck at that time.
Okay, so what we're looking for then is a motion to approve the 612,199.
I think, well, we have some money, so there's a benefit there. We have about 260, or I'm sorry, we have, our loan amount was going to be 262,000. I'm looking at a loan amount of 355, I would say. Based upon, so if we take that 612,199. We have 187,500 right now.
And is that what budget account is that sitting in, or what account line?
So you're gonna look at, it's right now, it's in our, just in our savings account, because it's left over from last year. So, we would look at, right now, we have in our we have proceeds from debt is 262. So we planned when during budget time, we planned to take out a loan of 262,495. So 262,500. That's what we were planning to take out. We were carrying over $110,000 from the year prior. And we were
How much is
planning to
that? What-
spend 10. Yep. And we were planning to spend 262. I'm sorry, 450,000. So 450,000 is what we're gonna spend. 262,495 is what we were planning on taking out a loan. And 101,000 was what we were carrying over from the prior year. Which that was an estimate, so I think when I went down to do it, because when we do budget, we're doing budget in November, obviously, and we don't have the final numbers till actually at the end of the year.
The funds sitting in the savings account, like the 110, 100.
From last year, yeah,
It's not allocated to anything?
it's allocated in our budget towards the road.
To road, okay. Okay,
Yeah. It's allocated to road work.
so the net of all of that and the loan.
So we're really looking at increasing our loan amount to cover some of that, the equipment expense that we didn't account for in November.
Okay, but so the new loan of 262,500,
That's
Plus-
our loan that we had in our,
That we have now.
we don't have that loan. That's what we anticipate
That's what
taking
I
up.
anticipate. Okay, I'm trying to balance this out.
Okay,
The 450 is budgeted for road work.
Right, and our road work, we know now is because at the time we guesstimated it was $450,000, right? And now we know that it's looking more to be like 355,000, say.
The
So-
355, does that include the repair work that Abel and Ryan are going to be doing on Netherwood and Madison Circle?
No.
They said that they have enough cold patch that they've already purchased for that project.
So that does not enter into this accounting.
From what they said, that they don't need to.
No, the dollar, that's strictly just kind of what we estimated or what Alpine Road is going to be. The Netherwood projects is not gonna use any more cold patch this year than what we would generally use year round. Cause we usually do some of that four-man wedging with the cold patch. You know, we did a lot on Judd Road, we've done a lot on Hillcrest before we paved it. So it's materials that we used in the past, so I'm not anticipating a lot more cold patch being used, so.
So that's
This year versus every other year, so.
okay. So I'm just trying to get to how we got to, we have a 358,000 Alpine Road cost.
Mhm.
We have 110 that's been carried over from last year. And then I'm trying to get in the 450 budget we had included was primarily directed at Alpine Road, our best guesstimate at that time.
Yeah.
So we beat that by about 100.
Mhm.
So again, I'm trying to balance this out. So
So
with
then
the-
what you're adding back in there is the equipment.
Okay.
That would go into that
Okay.
loan.
That's like 253, 288.
So we're still at a loan of 260, 262. 500. And we're able to get the equipment.
If we want to get the equipment, you would have to increase your loan.
Okay,
To
that's
about
the part that I'm,
Yeah,
what I was
Yeah.
confused. So how much, so of the equipment, replacing the 550, F-550, that is possible this year?
Yeah.
So that would increase the loan by 85,000?
yes, that would. Mhm. And that would be based upon, the cost of a new one is about 130,000. And that's guesstimating that we would get about $45,000 on the trade-in. Which, so these are all, again, guesstimates. And so then the next one would be, that's the end loader, that's 168, 288. And that would be, I don't know, that has a trading value or no trading value, I can't remember.
Yeah, that would, I can't remember if that was with it or without the trade, that was with the trade-in of like 40,000, I think. 20,000 or 40,000 on that loader, well, I can't remember the numbers, I should have looked at that before I came in, but.
And that bill would come due when?
When that loader would arrive, but it was, so, 6 months,
That would be 6
ish.
days. You-
I,
Dancing with the equipment. Here, is that all fit?
You mean just the cash outlay when it's due? It shouldn't matter if it's in the budget now or it carries over. Like, let's say it doesn't get delivered until February.
Yeah, we've been carrying over money in our equipment budget.
So that shouldn't matter, the actual.
We wouldn't be able to pay anything till September, which I've just been making sure everybody knows that we're not gonna get the money till September.
Right.
So even if it came in early, they're gonna have to not get paid till September, because that's when we'll get the funds.
So,
But I mean, that to me is the ask, is that new end loader is the ask. If you want to, we would, like I said earlier, we're replacing a loan that was 250,000. If we do all of this, all of what you see right there, all of Alpine Road, the F-50, the new inloader, you would be having to borrow but 355. So it's a little bit more than what you had put in the budget. But that's due to the cost of the equipment that you would want to
Okay.
purchase. If you want to, you don't have to.
I'm looking at 6 months is already pushing 2024.
Well, do you, are you?
I don't think we would take out, I'm anticipating you wouldn't take out another loan in 2024 for equipment and road work. I would,
Not if it's just those
You do
smaller
not.
dollar projects, right?
right, I was thinking that you probably wouldn't take out a loan, you try to. If you're taking out another loan, then that's not gonna be replacing the loan that you have, so then that's gonna cause.
Okay.
The taxes to go up.
Okay.
So you try to kind of, so you're looking at equipment for 23 and for 24. You're looking at road work for 23 and for 24, really with
Mhm.
kind of with this loan.
So the new loan that consolidates the existing one, includes the equipment, includes whatever's left on Alpine, is close to your 612 figure, correct?
That's how much the expense of everything's going to be.
Right.
Yeah,
And that, and we move ahead with that, and the loan figure moves to 360.
say 355,000, yeah. That's about what you would, so
Mhm.
you're replacing a $250,000 loan that you're gonna be paying off in 24, that's gonna be paid off, and then you're gonna replace it with about a $355,000 loan. And then with that, then there's the second step of deciding how many years you want to carry that
Okay,
out.
and that fleshes out, and we have flexibility before the September deadline. When does as the numbers start jockeying around?
So, well, the numbers can jockey around all they want. We really need to tell them how much money we want.
Like nowish.
Now.
Nowish,
Because of their
yeah.
process.
And that's just because, we only meet once a month for a board meeting, so we gotta remember that I have to get it to them. They meet as a board, then they have to give it back to us and they have to give it. So, you can sit on this until the June 13th meeting. That's totally fine. I'm okay with that. By June 13th, I should be sending this request form into them, then they're gonna have time to send it back to us for July to have the resolution, so we can get it back to them for August so that we can get our money in September.
I'm not sure that we would have any different numbers between now and
No, we
13.
really
Just be the
wouldn't.
same.
Right.
So I think what we're looking for is a motion to include or to apply for the loan, including both pieces of equipment, the road costs. And it's whatever gets to the 355.
That unless there's any amount of money in here that I can't see, I would say 355. I can do the math on it. I have not done that. What a loan payment, our current loan payments on these are, $88,000, that's what, we're currently, but that's at an interest rate of 2.5, so.
Yeah, and then 4 years.
That's 4 years repayments,
Okay.
so.
Right.
Yeah, so if we go up $100,000, but our interest rates are gonna go up.
Double.
If you wanna, either you're gonna increase that loan amount a little bit,
Mhm.
or I'm sorry, the repayment,
Right.
sorry. By doing it over 3 years still, or 4 years. Or you can extend it out to make the payments be about the same, so.
Yeah.
it's-
So like 5.
So if there's a motion to be made, it's for approving a loan application for 365.
Sure.
Is that the number that,
I 355, 365. I mean, I think that, what I have not built into here is any overage, so.
Right.
So 365, I mean, I'm looking at 355 kind of being the minimum of what we're gonna need to get everything done. I don't know, trade-in values fluctuate, so you could do 365 just to get some
Okay.
extra money for things. And then the next part of that motion would be the term amount. You know, would you want to do the 4 years again, which would be,
3 payments, 4 years.
yeah, so it would be, so we're in 23, so it would be 25, 26, 27 would be 4 years.
Yeah, about 125 plus interest.
And so what that kind of like, what you try to look at that is then you try to look at building your big projects in on the years that you're done paying off that loan. Makes sense?
I would make it, okay, if we don't use the 365, which I have a very hard time believing. We'll make an early payment.
Yeah, there's no prepayment penalty or
Okay.
anything like that.
I mean, so, anyway, just the intent would be, I move that we authorize a loan for 365 for a 4-year note.
Any seconds to that?
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
I think we beat it to death.
Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no.
Wisconsin
And that
Towns
carries.
Association has a really great webinar on how this VCPL loan works.
Okay,
It's worth looking at. I found it very interesting.
okay, that's,
All right, that comes,
Did we do everything you learned in that training? I mean, right?
That was a while ago. I have to go back to it.
One of the things that we talked about, though, Abel talked about was something maybe to road and traffic safety, or I have a list of all the roads. I can print that off for you. But it's keeping up on the seal coating. So once we do a road, take it out so many years and like put like a check mark and say seal coating needs to be done this year. So then that would be in conjunction with the repaving that you have to add in there too. Yeah,
Because one thing that we haven't done is any seal coating in subdivisions. And you spend just as much money on that asphalt in subdivisions as you do elsewhere. And you just need to have that protected as well. And there's ways of doing it that's not all dusty, messy for residents. It might inconvenience them for, so-called inconvenience them for a while, but
We'll just give them your name.
that's right. But, short term, but, like I say, it's $200,000 per mile to pave, and we got a lot of new asphalt in subdivisions that are laying or drying out.
right. Here, let me just wrap this up without objection. This meeting is adjourned.
Well, very nice to meet you.
Yeah, I see.
Where are you living here?
The corner of Crescent Windridge. Oh, right on.
You know what? I did it.
You skipped it.
No credit, no blame.
No, I.
Oh, no, we just want to try, so it wouldn't make any difference anyway.
like a tins machine. I just tins machine. Did I
My
go?
chicken goes in the middle of the night and all of a sudden.
Oh.
Like a baby or something.
Right, if you want to be on the board, for sure.
Honestly, it was just like a why not